What's up, Internet? Stando TV here, and today I need to say something offensive. That's the point of this show, so let's get started. Unless you guys have been living under a rock for the past week, No Man's Sky released last week, and the reviews have come out since, or some have come out since, for this game, and people seem to be kind of polarized on it. Some say it's good, some say it's not what I expected, and I explained a long ass time ago that this game was way overhyped. It was so vague in what they were offering or what they were promising as developers. Listen to what I said.
Paris Game Show happened this week, and we got a new trailer for No Man's Sky, and it turns out that game's coming out in 2016, and it looks marvelous. It looks like it's going to be a fun, fantastic game, and even though I think the game is overhyped, because a lot of people don't know exactly what to expect from that game, where I kind of think it's going to be somewhere between Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous. It's a space sim. This is what it is. It's a space trading sim where your goal is to eventually make your way to the middle of the galaxy and fight other factions along the way. I think it's a brilliant concept for the game. I'm waiting to see it. It's made by an independent developer, and I can't wait to play it in June 2016. Being a fan of Elite Dangerous, I'm totally still hyped and psyched on this game, but I think a lot of other people don't really understand what the game is about. So maybe it's a little overhyped. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hey, I'm just saying, it looks beautiful, it looks great, it's probably overhyped. A lot of people are going to buy it and they're not going to like it because they didn't understand that it was a space sim to begin with. I think it's not really their fault for mismarketing it, because I think the trailer for it looks great and is telling you exactly what it is. But
does this mean the game is bad? I don't know. I haven't played it myself yet. I want to, I'm getting ready to, and hopefully it's fantastic and I have a good time. That being said, however, I knew going into this game kind of what to expect. I think my expectations were kind of tempered from what everybody else was fanboying over. And when you do that, a game can never live up to those expectations. The developers, they just announced this thing way too early. That's why I have a problem with people announcing things too early. Final Fantasy 15 announced too early. No Man's Sky announced too early, and so vague on what they're promising. Kingdom Hearts 3, I thought it got announced way too early. I'm glad to know that they're working on these things. Mass Effect Andromeda announced it way too early. Our expectations are going to go through the fucking roof, and there's no way these games could ever live up to that hype. So built on the back of vague promises, when the game was announced its second delay, what did fanboys do? They sent death threats to the author of the article on Kotaku. What? Death threats? Really? Because the game got delayed? A game that you should want to have the mere polish and hope that it's better than anything out there when it releases. Like, delaying games is only good, right? Because that means they're working on this, they're working on that, yada yada yada. The game actually gonna work maybe on day one. Oh, and it turns out the game released and there's some connectivity issues people are having, and the PC port not really working all that well across all platforms. I know that's the meat of things. It's just the way things work. It's the way video games are nowadays. But even after the delay, it still wasn't ready. Death threats. And then you guys started sending the developer death threats because they were working hard to make sure you were having the best experience available, and working hard to make good on some of the promises that they've made to you through advertisement. You got to remember Everybody here is they're just out to get money. What did you expect, you fucking halfwits? Not everybody. I'm not talking to everybody who loves No Man's Sky is a halfwit. The ones that were sending death threats, though, definitely spineless halfwits. And then the reviews come out. Let me tell you something about reviews. I don't care what anybody says. There's no such thing as an objective review. All reviews are subjective. Reviews are an opinion. And you don't always have to agree with somebody's opinion, okay? You don't have to love something just because everyone else loves it. And you don't have to hate something just because everyone else hates it. It makes you weird, it makes you unique, it makes you special, it makes you an individual when you think for your fucking self. Jim Sterling, sometimes he could be obnoxious and sometimes he can say some of the weirdest shit just spew out of his mouth. And that's what I like about him, because he's unique, he's special, and he's different. Do I agree with everything that he says? No, but I find him quite entertaining. Some of his views I do agree with. But that doesn't mean I'm going to take his judgment over mine or somebody else's, or what he says is not the divine law that you have to live by. Put out a review for No Man's Sky. A review that we're fixing to read together. And what did you guys do? You didn't like his review of the game, so you DDOSed. You took it down. You DDOSed him. You DDOSed an ad-free website so he didn't lose any revenue. I don't know if you guys know this or not. He's crowd-funded. And this is very important. You have the freedom of speech. You have the freedom of expression. If you disagree with Jim, write about it in a blog. Post it on Facebook. Put it on Twitter. Make a video. Do whatever it is to get your message out there. But also respect that Jim Sterling has his right to free speech as well, and his right to freedom of expression as well. So when you DDoS that, you're taking away that freedom, and that is wrong. He has just as much right as anybody to say whatever bullshit that they want to spew. And you don't always have to agree with what you hear. You may not agree with me now, and that's okay. But you shouldn't act to take down somebody's message just because you don't agree with it. Instead, make a counter argument, and an intelligent one at that. But I digress. Let's read the review of Jim Sterling's review of No Man's Sky so that we can see what everybody got in an uproar about. No Man's Sky effectively portrays the loneliness of space by providing so little for the player to do, and it's tempting to flush oneself out of the airlock just to break the tedium. Not that you can do that, that would be too interesting. After all the hype, all the promises, all the boasting of procedurally generated wonder and dynamic encounters, Hello Games' ambitious spacefaring game is a little more than just another crafting and survival experience, more about performing mundane, repetitive tasks than providing unique and exciting encounters. Now, this is something that I can already disagree with Jim on, okay? I'm not just saying, oh yeah, this is the best review ever. But sometimes in these little sandbox worlds where there is really not an objective, there's kind of an objective, and that's to stay alive, you're pretty much writing your own unique experiences in each one of these games, I would argue. However, I do feel that the genre is oversaturated with that type of gameplay, but so does Jim. If you're not sick of the hundreds of survival games out there already, then No Man's Sky, with its endless resource collection and irritating inventory management, might be for you. That means if you like survival games, you might really dig this one. It's a high quality one. That's what he's saying here. For anybody else, the allure of hopping from planet to planet just isn't all that intriguing. Once you've completed a long and dull journey from the world to another, you're going to touch down in basically what you did everywhere else. The game's biggest feature, that no planet is the same, means very little when your interactions in each one are particularly identical. Here's the thing. Video game design is very hard to make these massive worlds and expect it to keep surprising us time after time. Like, eventually the games are going to get repetitive. I mentioned that last year when I said the game was overhyped. Here's what I said.
Now here comes No Man's Sky, and it comes out in June. And yeah, it's not as realistic when it comes to color palettes and things like this, and I'm excited for that. It is brought to us by an indie developer, and it has planetary landings, a first-person mechanic, and a beautiful procedurally generated world playground in which to just play. Now, I'm sure we're going to see repeating patterns throughout this game.
The fact of the matter is, if game developers want to really bring you, I'm sure they really want to bring you these massive worlds and have the same detail as like a Naughty Dog experience or a Rockstar experience, where every little nook and cranny is different and you see and hear something different every time you turn your TV on. However, that being said, we are limited by hardware restrictions. We only have enough space to make games, right? So Blu-ray players, you can only fit so much onto a Blu-ray. You can only expect people to be able to download a certain size of game. You can only, there's just a plethora of technical difficulties when you're over ambitious like this, okay? So here's the thing is, like, you should expect to run into some repetitiveness and when people are trying to be overambitious, because even if it's procedurally generated, unless you have a cajillion possibilities and mismatches and things like that, it's just impossible to not see the same certain elements more than once. Yes, there are dry planets, watery planets, cold planets, stormy planets, but they're all adhere to the same simple rules. The major difference between a poison planet and a nuclear planet is the fact that you'll get different logo next to the timer, and it tells you how long you have to stay outside. The animals mixed and matched quite obviously from a pool of recycled body parts, can be fed to uncover rare materials, but you can't do much beyond that aside from the few that are hostile and prone to attack. The animals are just there to look weird. Okay, here's another thing about gameplay mechanics, because he was talking a little bit about gameplay mechanics. Another limitation we have. We only have so many buttons and we only have so many fingers. Another thing that we only have so much of is keys on a keyboard. And I'm telling you, until we get more in-depth input, accurate motion control, tracking with a VR experiences, we're going to see a lot of gameplay restrictions like this, because you don't want to make an entire game based on menus. You just don't want to do it, because nobody want to play your stupid game, because graphically it's just not fun. You're looking at a menu. How long can a menu stay interesting? The animals mixed and matched quite obviously from a pool of recycled body parts. Again, I'm just saying that there's only so much that they can fit into the space of the game. There's only so many algorithms that they can place here, because, well, you only have so many resources, graphic resources and parts that you design to put in. Unless you make a cajillion of them, you're going to get this effect of, oh, I've seen it before. It's a recycled pool and Lego body type. That's just what you're going to see. On encountering a large dinosaur-like creature, I proceeded to use my shitty jetpack, and boy is it shitty, to ride on its back. I thought that would be fun. Instead, I just fell through its back because it had no solidity, leaving me to sigh and return to get more mind-numbing resource collection. That is kind of disappointing. Hello Games should work on the solidity of character models. Every now and then, other starships land nearby, but nothing ever gets out of them. To interact with their pilots, you must interact with the ship, at which point a character model pops up, and you can have a text-based conversation with a pop-up character model. I think this is talking about the immersion that they were kind of showing that you would have getting lost in this world and things like that. It would be nice to see other character models and talk to other character models, and because when you have pop-ups character models like that and people aren't getting out of their ships, they're just landing and taking off and landing and taking off, it does break the immersion, and I totally get that. The world of an average Elder Scrolls game may be far smaller than No Man's Sky's galactic sprawl, but it's inherently more meaningful, vivid, and lively because it actually has stuff to do and people to meet. And that's another thing. Like I said, I think that the big draw to this game is to let the players explore and survive and get lost in the wonder and not tie them down to checkbox lists like the Ubisoft games. You know how Ubisoft, they always have these checkbox that you got to do this in this area to complete this area before we move on to the next area. No Man's Sky doesn't have that. I've heard that there's very little hand-holding in this game at all. And it's left to the player to figure shit out on their own. So if that's not your cup of tea, if you don't like being, if you need to be directed at all times, you're probably not going to have a lot of fun here, and it's going to seem like there's nothing to do. However, if you can get creative and again commit a lot of time to it, you're going to fare better. And so I kind of agree, but I kind of disagree with him here on this one. Again, I've not played the game, but I've played a lot of games similar to this. No Man's Sky is indicative of a big problem in the game that the game industry has. Conflating the size of a game's world with the equality of its character. It's yet another game that pushes scale above everything else, but when it comes down to actually playing the thing, sheer landmass doesn't account for much. And again, people are going to argue over this because some people like the scale and size and ornament, and some people they prefer things to do. For example, a Bethesda game, they're huge worlds, but every 5 feet there's something to do, right? Whereas in a Rockstar game, there's a lot of area that's never even used, and sometimes you don't have to drive by certain places. You do so because you just want to. So it is what it is. The constant feeling of chasing one's own tail for the sheer sake of it is found in many survival games, and is just as prevalent here. Everything is a chore. Everything needs some special sort of fuel source, and there's not enough room to carry it all. You start out slow, unable to sprint for long, with terrible jetpack to modicum of enhanced travel. Again, I thought that's what this game would be. It's living up to my expectations of the game. Some people like that sort of stuff. Some people simply don't. Sounds like Jim's just one of those people who simply doesn't like it. That doesn't mean he's not entitled to his opinion. This is his opinion. One's abilities can have upgrades crafted for them, but upgrades share the same restricted inventory space as anything else, meaning you need to choose between being able to sprint for an unacceptable amount of time or being able to carry more things. This becomes less of a problem when you buy bigger starships. Again, that's a progression system to carry more loot, but it remains an annoyance, and it makes the early game an uphill battle against crushing Inuit. Right. Without the progression system, you know what I mean? Like, what do you have to look forward to if everything's handed to you at the very beginning and you're just roaming around? People get excited for unlocking shit. They get excited about progression systems. They get excited about being rewarded. And that's why I think game developers do this. Yeah, it sucks that you've got to level up to that point, but again, it's a grind, and I think that's kind of the point of this particular game. I think that's everybody's expectation in this game, or it should have been. It's the game's subpar first-person shooter mechanics really aren't suited for fast-moving fodder. Everybody loves Fallout games, and let's face it, it's not really the first-person shooter mechanic there's not all that great either. So it's not, I don't think that this is like I'm not expecting it to be as fluent as a Battlefield or a Call of Duty, because there's a lot more going on, like flying a ship, and you're doing this, and you're doing animal, and you're doing, like, the scale's just larger. You expect the gameplay mechanic to kind of not be on par. They don't specialize in first-person shooters, and I think that may be a problem. Maybe they should have had an outside consultant come in and help them with that mechanic so that it felt more fluid and stuff. But then would that break the flow of the game if they did that? So it's probably a design choice of some sort. Oh, and as weirdly pretty as the game can be, things are marred by aggressively grainy pop-in as textures and environmental details bubbles into existence pixel by pixel. I wonder if this wasn't a online server game, if that would be an issue, because a lot of times what I've noticed with online games is the way field of view and things like that are actually rendered, especially in these procedurally generated world, is that they use your network connection to generate what you're seeing, and that could be probably part of the problem here, maybe. Again, that's on the game design choice. Maybe it would have been cool to have an offline version of the game. Maybe that would have been too big for of a file size, because a lot of people are saying, hey, the game is so small, you know, as far as its download size, how can all this information fit on it? Well, probably because the main world, the main element parts, you're accessing through the internet. It's being streamed to you in a way. So I wonder if environmental details and pop in and screen tearing and things like that are caused by actual internet connection and not hardware itself. I've seen so many planets, met so many aliens, and mined so much goddamn carbon, and not once have I been surprised. Not once has the game thrown me a curveball. Every new location is just a different colored home for the same old routine, and the procedural generation means that things feel far less diverse than they could be. When randomized pulls replaced handcrafted designs, the Lego bricks piecing everything together are far too obvious. Like Spore before it, No Man's Sky is a game that promised far more than it could ever deliver. I said the same thing. I do agree with that. But I can't even blame my tepid reaction on hype. I did not for a second believe Hello Games vaguely described Spacefarer could be anywhere near as varied and expansive as promised. And I don't believe anybody that has followed the gaming industry and knowing that this game got announced in 2013 bought into its hype. Because it spent a long time in development hell. Usually when games spend that much time in development hell, things aren't good. And that's what makes me worry about games like Final Fantasy 15, or that's what made me worry about Doom. That's obviously what happened to Duke Nukem Forever. There's just a lot of examples of this where games get stuck in this development hell. I'm really worried about The Last Guardian as well. So yeah, because now those products have been out there for so long, even if they're good at best, they'll never be considered great, because I think they kind of missed the mark. But anyway, even with expectations guarded, however, I did not expect just another survival crafting game that used randomization as a crutch to the point of losing all potential and personality. What did you expect then? Because I didn't expect the survival aspect of it, like the filling the meters, but it makes sense in a sci-fi world. I did expect more like a trading type sim game, kind of like Elite, because Elite was the original Elite was the inspiration for this game. The developers even have said as much, so at least I expected more to fucking do. I've seen things you people would easily believe. I've not seen attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched no C-beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. There are no moments to lose in time like tears and procedurally generated rain time to sky. Here's the thing, another thing that I want to point out about Jim Sterling. He does reviews and he makes videos and a lot of things for a living. He may not have the time to sink into this that everybody else wants to sink into it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that if you're willing, he gave this a 5 out of 10. I don't think it's that mediocre. I think that the sites that are rating it more like a 7 or an 8, it's not a perfect game by any stretch of the means, and I don't know why anybody ever thought that it would be. But I do think that no matter what, this game is going to bring me a unique experience. I think that there was just something, maybe he did not have the, because you remember this was posted on August 9th, right? Well, the game came out on August the 9th. So he posted it the same day, and there was a huge day one patch that altered a lot of the game, probably fixed a lot of stuff that Jim missed. He probably had like a review copy or something, and he released it because the embargo was lifted the same day it released. So he went ahead and released his review of what he had, and that may have been what the game was before the update. And he may have been bored, and I'm almost certain that there was some sort of server issues. There always is, right? Leading up to launch. So, but again, this is his opinion. He's allowed to have it. The point of this video is not really what Jim has said or what he thinks, but his right to do so. Okay, it's not whether he's right or he's wrong, it's whether he's allowed to speak about it. There are some elements in this review that I don't think that Jim Sterling treated fairly, and I've not even played the game yet, and I can see how people could have gotten upset or mad, especially knowing that the day one patch that came out the same day the game was, and this review goes up that day, so it's not really an accurate portrayal of what people are playing now. And that's a little bit of a problem, and I guess in some way he kind of asked for some sort of criticism. However, I do not think that his site should have been DDoSed or taken down just because he had an opinion that most people disagreed with. Anyway, these are just thoughts. You don't have to agree with me. That's why YouTube has a like button and a dislike button. If it was a more liberal media site, it'd be more like Facebook, where you can only hit the thumbs up. But anyway, guys, while you're down there hitting the up or down button, leave a comment. Tell me why you agree with me, why you disagree with me if you want to. Hit the subscribe button if you would like to see more videos like this one. And as always, guys, remember that you have the right to say whatever you want, whether it's blogging, whether it's videoing, whether it's podcasting, whatever you use to get out your message, social media, Instagram, Tumblr, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. It's your right to disagree. However, do not think that you should use that to shut down other people's speech. Your right to freedom of speech should not impede on others' rights of freedom of speech. We need to have a dialect. We need to have a conversation. We need to have conflicting ideas out there. That's what makes us interesting. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us individuals. That's what keeps us from being a marginalized group. Remember, guys, love your face. Have a good one.